To all you cast iron fans out there, have you guys checked out the Lodge Griddle? It's completely reversible. One side is a grilling surface, and when you flip it over, the other side is a flat griddle. And the best part is, it's made entirely of cast iron. I think it's an amazing buy, and you should really be considering it. Here's my full review on the Lodge Reversible Cast Iron Griddle. Let's dive in. Alright, so here's some background. I'm a huge cast iron fan. Actually, I love carbon steel, stainless steel, you name it. I'm just a huge fan of cooking. If you haven't already, check out my video where I compared cast iron, carbon steel, and stainless steel, gave you guys the pros and cons of each material and why famous cooks prefer those three skillets. So let's talk about the Lodge Carbon Steel Griddle. I originally bought this griddle mainly for breakfast and smash burgers. And because it was made by Lodge, who is a fantastic company known for their cast iron skillets, I knew it was going to be a good buy. It's completely made out of cast iron, so I knew I was going to get all the benefits of cast iron. I was really excited to use it, saw it on sale on Amazon for 35 bucks last year during Prime, and I knew I had to pull the trigger on it. When I got it in, I used the heck out of it. But the cast iron griddle wasn't perfect right out of the box, and there was a few things that I had to do. So let's talk about the pros and cons of this Lodge cast iron griddle. Okay, here's the pros. The biggest pro is it's made out of cast iron, so it's gonna retain heat, it's gonna sear your meats beautifully, and it's gonna give you the non-stick coating for that slick, smooth surface. Cast iron is known for retaining heat and searing proteins like no other skillet. This cast iron griddle is the same exact thing. And Lodge is known for their exceptional quality, and they back all of their cast iron products 100%. So the customer service is phenomenal. So let's talk about this cast iron griddle. Like Lodge's other cast iron skillets, it does come pre-seasoned from the factory. However, I still recommend that you season it yourself. You can use any method that you want, but since this is a really large cast iron griddle, I decided to just oil it up and stick it in my oven for 45 minutes past the smoking point of whatever oil you want to use. I prefer grapeseed oil. The next big pro about this cast iron griddle is you have plenty of space. The griddle tray comes in at 20 inches by 10.5 inches, and it easily fits over your stovetop. I have a gas stovetop, and it sits nicely on both burners. So I feel like it's the perfect size. I don't feel like it's gonna fall off, and I'm not getting a really small cooking surface. I'm getting plenty of length with enough width to put in as many pancakes that I want, or hash browns, or eggs, you name it, a big fat ribeye steak, it can handle it all. For those of you that are lucky enough to have 3 burners, you're gonna have perfect heat distribution. Unfortunately, I don't have a 3-burner setup. I have 4 burners total, 2 on each side. A square stovetop. And this isn't the griddle's fault, so I'm not gonna put this down as a con. So for me, the griddle sits on 2 of the burners, so in the middle, I don't have a heat source. And because it's cast iron, it takes a little longer to heat up evenly, but because it retains heat so well, eventually I do get the heat distribution. But of course, my 2 hot spots are gonna be at the front and back of the griddle. The middle is my cool spot. I've learned to kind of work with that. I'll cook and sear things on the edges, and then in the middle, I'll let things slowly cook or heat up. It's a great setup, I've made it work, and I'm sure you guys will figure it out for your stovetop. Another big obvious pro is it's 2-sided. So on one side, you have a grilling surface, and on the other side, you have your flat griddle. Now, we'll get to the flat part later on, because there's a big con there, but you do get the options of having a grill side and a flat side. The grilling side leaves amazing sear marks, as you guys can see here on the Oscar steaks that I was preparing, which were chuck eye steaks. And of course, the flat side is perfect for those smash burgers or cooking up breakfast. You can really use either side for anything that you want. Now, me personally, I find myself using the grilling side not as often as I do the flat side. And that's mainly because if I want to grill, I go out to the barbecue and I don't necessarily want to deal with the cleanup. So we'll get to that in a second because that's another con. But I like having the versatility, and I think you guys would too. I know a lot of people that like using both sides and they alternate frequently, but having the option is a huge pro. Another big pro, and I absolutely love this feature from Lodge, and I don't see it on other griddles. Lodge included a catch pan or a drip area off to the side of the griddle, and it runs the entire length of the griddle. It's extremely well thought out, really smart of Lodge to do it, and well designed, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. It actually catches a lot of grease, and you guys will be really thankful for it, especially when you start seeing it. I think Lodge did an amazing job with the design because the outer ridges are raised, so you don't have to worry about food sliding off or grease sliding off. It really is well thought out of on both sides. Both the grilling and the flat griddle side both have the catch trays and the raised edges, so that's a huge plus for me. And like I said, the cooking surface is really, really large. You get 20 inches by 10.5 inches. Another big plus. Okay, so now let's talk about the cons. And there's not a whole lot of them, but I do want to get them out of the way. Probably the biggest con, and most of you guys will notice this, the cast iron griddle is really heavy. It's made out of solid cast iron, so it's a little difficult picking it up and setting it down, especially when it's hot, and storage can be a problem. I usually just keep mine in the oven when I'm not using it, and when I need to use the oven, I take it out and store it someplace else temporarily. I think that's just something that you have to kind of live with because it's cast iron. Cast iron is densely packed, it's a heavy metal, but all the pros, I feel, outweigh the negatives of it being heavy. So keep that in mind. The next biggest con is, although it comes pre-seasoned from the factory, you do need to season it a couple more times. You don't get that non-stick feature right away, and that's pretty common. And if you think about it, it's a large cast iron griddle, so it could use a couple more seasonings anyways. It's not a big deal. I feel like I probably seasoned it twice total. And like I said, I just used grapeseed oil, stuck it in the oven, made sure it went past the smoking point for around 45 minutes or so. And that was one seasoning session. And then I allowed it to cool in the oven for a few hours and then did the whole process again. Lightly coated it with grapeseed oil, stuck it back in the oven. So 2 seasoning processes, and it was incredibly non-stick. That's all it takes. It takes a little bit out of your time, but I did include in the cons because for some of you guys, it may not be usable as a non-stick, griddle right out of the box. With all fairness though, if you don't want to season it, I'm sure you're fine. If you cook with it the first 4 or 5 cooks, it should naturally become non-stick. And again, that's the pros of cast iron. The next biggest con is actually on the grilling side. The grilling side gets really dirty. I mean, food builds up really easily and it's really hard to clean. And when I say really hard, I'm just saying harder than I'm used to for cast iron. Cast iron, usually the food's sliding on and off like a hockey puck, but I'm not used to seeing food build up like it does on the grilling side. So if you have a cheap plastic brush, that's more than enough. You just brush it and you get all the food out and you can clean it. Because it's so big and heavy, it is kind of a chore to clean it, but it's not that big of a deal. You get used to it. The biggest chore is really because it's heavy, going back to con 1. But like I said, like any other cast iron skillet, or in this case griddle, you get used to it and you learn to work with it and appreciate one another. So keep that in mind. The next biggest con, on the griddle side, it's really bumpy right out of the box from the factory. I actually sanded mine down to a nice smooth surface. A nice smooth even surface. So if you're planning on sanding it down, make sure you stay even. That's really important. You don't want any raised bumps because it's such a long griddle. But once I did that, I mean, geez, this thing is so non-stick now. It feels like a restaurant quality griddle and I absolutely love it. But I highly recommend sanding down the griddle part. And again, if you watch my cast iron versus carbon steel versus stainless steel video, you'll know that carbon steel is even more non-stick than cast iron, and food literally flies off of carbon steel. And that's because carbon steel has a nice smooth surface right out of the factory. It's really personal preference. There's a lot of people that don't sand down their Lodge cast iron skillets or griddles, and they're perfectly happy with the rougher surface. But for me, I feel like Lodge should really start offering a smoother cast iron skillet or griddle for the customers that do want it. And now for my last con. This is kind of a big one. I hope you guys have good ventilation in your house or a good exhaust system over your kitchen stovetop. because if you're using this cast iron griddle to sear anything or even just to cook things on high heat, smoke builds up incredibly quickly, and before you know it, your whole house is filled with smoke. Now it happens on both sides, the griddle side and the grilling side, but the grilling side is ridiculous. I mean, if you think about it, your proteins and your meats are sitting on the grilling surfaces, which are extended and offsetted up. And because you have that gap between the grilling surfaces, the grilling edges, and the bottom surfaces, when food tends to drip, you end up getting smoke, and that happens a lot. And I know what you're saying, come on man, it's not extruded that high up. I get it, but because cast iron gets really hot, whenever your food drips, you basically have a smoke machine. So really consider that. If you have a good exhaust system on top of your stovetop, or you have really good ventilation or a lot of windows, I'm sure you'll be okay, but it does get really annoying really quickly. On the griddle side, it's not that bad, but you still do get a really smoky environment. And if you really think about it, because this griddle is so long, and if you only have your proteins or your food or your meat that you're trying to cook on certain parts of it, the parts that don't have any food on it, it's just heating up. That surface is just heating up, is literally reaching its smoking point. And then you have this really smoky griddle that is just begging to explode at any moment. No, I'm just kidding. That's just literally turning into a smoke machine. Restaurants get away with it just fine, but keep in mind, restaurants have a really good exhaust system to get all that smoke out. So that's something that you might be really surprised to find out if you do buy this griddle. That's basically it for the pros and cons. I mean, as you guys can see, there's some cons, but there's a lot of pros, and I definitely highly recommend this Lodge cast iron reversible griddle. So I've cooked a lot of things on this griddle. We love cooking breakfast on it. I've cooked hash browns, eggs, I've cooked toast. Because of its size, we love making sandwiches on this griddle. I mean, you name it. It's definitely our jack of all trades tool in our kitchen. So here's some footage of me frying some eggs. Check it out. So here's my final thoughts. Well, let's talk about pricing. Right now, currently, you can find this Lodge cast iron griddle on Amazon for $49.99, 50 bucks. But like I said, guys, watch out for special deals. Lodge usually has this thing on sale. I got it for 35 bucks on Prime Day. And if I remember correctly, around Christmas time, you'll see another big sale. So Christmas is right around the corner. And at 35 bucks, it's a no-brainer. At 40 bucks, it's a no-brainer. At 50 bucks, you should really be considering it. Do you kind of see where I'm going at here? You should be considering this cast iron griddle. I am a carbon steel guy, and I have kind of given away or sold all my cast iron. I would love to see Lodge make a carbon steel version of this, because that would eliminate the weight problem, and I would get all the benefits of carbon steel, which is literally almost all the benefits of cast iron. So far, I have not found a good carbon steel version of this. Usually the people that do make the carbon steel versions of these griddles, they usually make them really thin, or it's not the best carbon steel material. It's not a name brand company, usually with horrible customer service. I just don't trust them. So if they come out with a carbon steel version of this, that's the only reason I would upgrade and give this one away. My thoughts on this griddle is it's an amazing accessory to add to your kitchen. Now let's talk about the stovetops real quick. The only concern I have is for you guys out there that are using induction or even electric stovetops. I think this cast iron griddle works best with gas stovetops, and I can see it working just fine with electric stovetops, but I would just make sure it's absolutely flat when you do get it. Remember, you never want to heat up cast iron or carbon steel and then cool it off drastically. You always want to allow your cast iron or carbon steel skillets to cool down naturally on their own before cleaning them. When you do shock them like that, they tend to warp on you. So, and then likewise, you never want to heat them up to extreme temperatures and not cook anything on them. That will also warp them. Cast iron retains heat really, really well. And you know, you can even crack it if you really abused it. But this thing's gonna last you a lifetime. Don't drop it. Cast iron will shatter and you'll probably break your foot. So, you know, keep that in mind. But this is an amazing, amazing tool for the kitchen. And seriously, guys, check it out for yourselves. If you're making smash burgers or breakfast, just thank me later. Leave me a comment below, guys. That's it for me. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care, everybody. Hey, everybody. How'd you guys like that last video? Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified on my next video. And if you can, please share with your family and friends. I would really appreciate it. Here's some more content that I think you guys are really gonna enjoy. Check them out. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.